Yo, what's good YouTube? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we got something different. We got Invincible versus the JJK Gauntlet Isn't What You Think. This is by The Salad Bar. Shout out to you, my boy. Thanks for making this. Now, in my opinion, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I feel like if Mark was in the JJK verse, he could clear out maybe like 40% of people in there. Not counting high grades, but when he starts getting into the special grade categories like Gojo, Sukuna, and like Maguna and them, or Maharaga, even Maharaga, he's not beating him. He's not beating anybody in that category. I'm just like, and I'm not trying to like be biased. It's just that he has the strength. He just does not have the healing factor. His healing's not fast enough. It takes a couple days, and he just doesn't have the hacks. So, but yeah, without further ado, enough of me yapping. We're gonna get into the video. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, share the video with your friends. Sorry for the late upload schedule. I had stuff to do today. But yeah, without further, also catch me on Twitch, bro. I was live on Twitch earlier. We did reactions. I'll post some of the reactions from Twitch onto here, but I'm gonna start doing reactions on Twitch. I want to get more popular in there. And try to like just make it easier for you guys so you can get the live reactions, and then people that don't go there, they can get the post live reactions or after reactions. But without further ado, let's get to the video.
Drop Invincible, aka Mark Grayson, into JJK. Could he survive the culling game? It's not really as straightforward as you think. Otherwise, I wouldn't be covering it. Here's the scenario.
He would not survive.
For this, we'll be using the current TV version of Invincible, based on Season 3. No comic spoilers here, and honestly, there's not going to be many spoilers in general. Mark gets word of some incident that happened in Japan, so it needs to be dealt with pretty quickly. Following the Shibuya incident, he gets all the info, and now knows of the culling game. Some strange sorcerer villains are causing havoc. Most aren't physically a challenge for Mark, but their sorcery will be a big issue if he isn't careful. And, like my other videos, we'll go under the assumption that he could fight and kill curses, as well as be affected by domains and such.
Okay, so we're gonna use equalization. Okay.
In many ways.
That's
this might seem like
fair.
overkill, and Mark seems pretty strong compared to everyone in the verse, but he doesn't have all the crazy abilities they have or direct counters to some of that stuff. It's not as straightforward as you think, especially with the other aspects we introduce later on. To make things a bit
I would say like a point blank hollow purple is like, or a 200% hollow purple is probably a point blank. Okay. Invincible's durability, I would have to say, is like closest to a Krypton's durability, just not as like strong as the Kryptons, right? But I would have to say like a hollow purple up close, that's gonna do some damage. I'm not gonna lie. And a 200% hollow purple, yeah, that's killing him like instantly. That's just gonna tear him apart. But anyways, let's get into the video.
tougher for him. He'll be treated as an enemy by the protagonist as well. But
yes, I am an Invincible fan, but like, come on, guys, like let's be honest.
Can't kill them. He's a hero after all. But they will be after him for his points, and as for villains, we'll assume that he's out to kill, even if it's not something he'd resort to right off the bat. He'll also fight everyone just once, so if they appear in multiple colonies, we'll do a Gauntlet style where he faces them in order but doesn't repeat a fight. However, since there was that brief time skip, anyone who actually showed a significant enough change over that time skip will fight Mark again. Like Yuji, for example. And don't worry, I'm not going to cover literally everyone here like random curses or Miwa. Like, we know how that goes. So in short, he has to accomplish 3 things. 1, abide by the rules of the game. 2, kill any villain players. And 3, non-lethally deal with any of the protagonists and try to get on their side or at least get their points. And I know you all want to see him fight Sukuna as well, so we'll have him fight him at the end.
I don't know. I feel like Mark he could definitely damage Sukuna, but if we're doing equalization, Sukuna definitely has the capabilities. As much as you guys know, I do not like Sukuna like at all. Like his character's cool. It's just that like, bro, I'm not gonna lie, the Sukuna fans really ruined the character for me. Like they just ruined him because they make him like. After the fight with Gojo, bro, they made Sukuna like this all-powerful being that he can solo like fiction. It was like edits and stuff about him. I'm not gonna lie, the Sukuna fans completely ruined the character for me. But I will say is that if we're talking about like 15 finger Sukuna, before he fights Maharaga, I feel like he could definitely beat Invincible. He could definitely beat him because he has the hacks.
As well as others present in Shinjuku. First, a brief rundown of his power, and if you want to skip this, I'll put a chapter in the video. And I'm going to keep this short anyways because I know you're more interested in the fights, and I have covered this before, just in the last video actually. So if you want to see it more in depth, check out my Invincible versus Dragon Ball video. We'll start with attack.
Yo, Chad, if y'all want to react to that, let me know.
Power and durability. We came to the conclusion in the last video that he's around country level, at least as of the current point of the TV series.
That's valid.
Of course, he can grow stronger with rage, and when he stops holding back, he shows way more power. A lot of the time, he is kind of pulling his punches. As for speed, this is where it gets a little bit iffy. So last time, we came to the conclusion that he's millions of times faster than light based on his travel speed. And fair warning ahead, I'm about to yap a lot about speed, mainly to clarify something in the last video, because I didn't really clarify my stance on this too much in the last video, but I still stand by what I said about his travel speed being that high. However, I did see some comments saying that his travel speed shouldn't apply to his combat and reaction speed, but I don't think that's fair, so let's go into that a little bit. Two things to consider. One, the Viltrumites travel really fast in space, but that's because they have no resistance. They're in a vacuum. Two, they don't reach that speed right away. Of course, there's some level of acceleration they need. So yes, while his travel speed is that high, I get why people might say it's not fair to apply it directly to his combat speed, although I still think it should apply to that to a degree. Sure, acceleration's a factor, and when he's fighting on Earth, he's probably going to be slower, but yeah, his combat speed's only going to be a small fraction of what that travel speed is, at least the top travel speed. However, I still think it's fair to scale his reaction speed to that, at least to some degree. Sure, they don't get to those speeds instantly when traveling, but their reaction speed doesn't need acceleration like that. Their reaction speed...
Oh my gosh, I hate these ads. Let's get into the video.
Should be pretty high. Maybe not exactly the same as their travel speed, but I mean, when they're traveling millions of times faster than light, is it really that crazy to say their reaction speed is massively faster than light too? Like, not exactly equal to travel speed, but it still should be up there at least. So for the sake of this video, Mark's travel speed is greater than his reaction speed, which is greater than his combat speed. But another issue people brought up is the fact that Mark doesn't completely overwhelm people on Earth with his speeds, and he can't always react to attacks or dodge everything. So this leaves a few scenarios. One, Viltrumites have really good travel speed, but their reactions and combat speed suck for some reason, which means Viltrumites actually just fly blindly in space, which is funny to think about, but also does kind of make sense in a way because they're flying in the middle of nothing. Or another likely option, the story is just really inconsistent with how it handles speed. But yeah, I get the counter arguments to what I said in that video. Alright, that tangent's done because it doesn't even really apply here. Like, even if we assume his combat speeds and reaction speeds are a fraction of that, even 1/10 or 100 of that, still he'd outspeed everyone in JJK by a pretty big margin. I did just want to clear that up from the last video, and honestly, that still doesn't.
I would say the two people that he probably most likely cannot outspeed is Gojo because he's faster than Verse. It may be Sukuna. Sukuna's pretty fast. He's just not as fast as Gojo, but yeah.
He still would outspeed everyone there. So in case you skipped all that, which I don't blame you, the point is Mark is comfortably above every character physically, so the main crux of this video is raw power versus hacks. Who comes out on top? We'll do the colonies in order, but not the fights themselves. The first few are kind of a breeze. Let's start with Tokyo 1. And let's go with the main character, Yuji, as well as Megumi. Yuji and Megumi at the beginning of this arc won't do anything to Mark, and whenever Angel comes in, that curse technique has no effect on Mark either.
No,
Reggie and Ko might make for an interesting fight, but nothing he can't handle. Takaba is also in the colony too, but we'll save him for later on. Higuruma is an interesting case though. So Mark has cursed energy, which means he can get caught in Higuruma's domain. But what would it accomplish? So one side effect is it would remove his cursed energy, which would just help him against other domains if anything, because then he'd be immune to them. Removing his cursed energy won't do anything. But Mark might also get the death penalty, which would mean Higuruma gets the Executioner's Sword. But Mark would still be way too fast to hit with that.
That is true. I mean, like, all he would need is just to hit Mark once, because Mark doesn't have healing, but I feel like Mark, he has to hit Mark, and Mark would, like, I feel like Mark would instantly know that, like, yeah, no, I can't let this thing hit me.
So he gets by here. Why do I think he'd get that? Well, he has committed some crimes. Judge Man is 100% finding him guilty of something, and at the very least he'd probably get murder, which would lead to the death penalty. Mark probably won't be able to defend himself in court, and unlike Yuji, he's actually guilty of the stuff he's committed. Like, for example, I warned you we'd do some Season 3 spoilers here. He killed a mortal, although that was in the future, so I don't know if that would even be counted here. And he's done things like cause a lot of bodily harm to other people, destroyed government property, which comes to the Reanimen, and he's committed treason technically too, which, at least when it comes to the US government, that gives him the death penalty. And yeah, I know the fight would be taking place in Japan, so I don't really know how that would apply there. But in terms of murder, at least, I mean, he also killed a bunch of copies of Multipol, and I wonder if that would count. Like, he's not Dexter Morgan, but technically that would make him a serial killer when you think about it, because he killed all those clones of Multipol. So there's a chance he could get tried for murder, but at the very least, treason, destruction of property, destruction of government property, assault, vigilantism, and probably some other things I'm forgetting. So there's a chance Higuruma could get the Executioner's Sword, and an even slimmer chance that he could actually kill Mark, because he'd have to actually hit him first, which would be kind of impossible. But still, it's a chance. Now onto Sendai College.
It's a strong chance.
Yuta and Rika would really be the only things that pose an issue here, I feel, mainly because Mark has to deal with them non-lethally. Ryu, Uro, everyone else, not really a big deal. I think he actually makes it through this one pretty quickly. Tokyo Colony 2 is pretty interesting though. So Panda and Charles are there, they're not doing anything to Mark, but there's also Hikari and Kashimo. Hikari would be non-lethal of course, but it's going to be really tough to knock out a guy who's immortal. Like, there are ways for Mark to actually kill Hikari and get around that immortality, but he's a good guy, so that's not an option. Hikari can't do anything to Mark, so Mark would have to use Talk no Jutsu or something to get out of this somehow. But I guess one way to stop him is to grab onto him and suffocate him somehow, like get him underwater or take him high up into the atmosphere, which Mark could definitely do for both of those things. He could hold his breath a lot longer. And like for Hikari, that would deprive him of oxygen, knock him out, and at least non-lethally deal with him. Hopefully not cause too much damage though. I feel like if Mark just tried to knock him out physically, his body would just immediately heal that. And then he'd regain consciousness and he could just keep spamming jackpot over and over. But there's probably a few ways Mark can get around that.
It just wouldn't do anything. Hikari is like strong as crap, but like the jackpot like wouldn't. I would have to say like if Hikari was in jackpot mode, it would give Mark some trouble on like a ground to ground basis, hand to hand combat. But like no,
and maybe some others on glossing over. Just an interesting thing to note though is that he would be a little tougher. For Kashimo, let's just use his full power right away because he's probably gonna have to resort to that. Mark would be able to easily stop him in his base, although he might actually be affected by the electricity attacks since they home onto him. And he's fought against people who use electricity attacks before, like this happened when he tried to fight Machine Head in the first season. Granted, he was weaker then, but he's still probably vulnerable to electricity to some extent. To what extent and how powerful that electricity needs to be, we don't know for sure, but that at least bypasses the physical part. One really interesting thing about Kashimo too is the fact that he's able to use sound attacks. Mark is susceptible to certain frequencies in his ears, which would disrupt his fighting and basically make him immobile too. If Kashimo is able to exploit this, he can incapacitate Mark. However,
same old phone? Nah. Upgrade to the new Galaxy Z Fold 7.
First technique, he's gonna die right after, so Kashimo's dead regardless here. Although he actually has a shot of harming Mark, either through the electricity...
Hold on, chat, I'll be right back. Alright, chat, let's continue. Sorry, that was one of my Discord members.
Or if he's lucky enough to stumble upon Mark's weakness, that would immobilize him and Kashimo could probably kill him right after that. But for the sounding, that's mostly luck-based. I don't think he's going to realize that right off the bat, and he'd have to figure out the exact frequency in the first place. So we'll say Mark passes this too, but I think it's worth mentioning that little factoid because it's kind of interesting to me at least. Kashimo has a slim chance of not frauding out here. Next is Sakurajima. This is where Maki and Naoya are. So Maki doesn't have anything to affect Mark, nor is she strong enough to get by with raw physicals, so easy win for Mark there. And for Naoya, we'll use his cursed version. Projection sorcery would actually be really annoying for Mark to deal with. If he's in the first place.
That would be
Time
like,
Cell Moon Palace will enforce this on a cellular level though. So outside of a domain, Mark's going to be fine, but once that domain's activated, Mark would have to abide by that because he simply can't just outspeed it. Since it enforces it on a cellular level, the question is whether or not this could actually harm Mark. It is attacking the cells directly, but that doesn't apply to suppresses his durability because even his cells are going to be pretty strong. So Mark would have to abide by the rules, but I don't think the attack's going to be lethal enough to actually harm him. Given how durable he is, he could probably just brute force his way through this with minor injuries, or just simply abide by it and win that way. Either way, this fight's not going to kill him, but it's probably going to be annoying for him. So Mark's doing really well. He could likely stop the game by getting enough points and then just canceling it that way, or just defeating everyone in his way. But even with his physical prowess, as we've seen so far, some abilities will affect him, especially since we're going to move on to some other fights, because the Culling game still did go on after this point. Let's go to the Lake Gosho colony. Takaba could kill Mark, but he doesn't kill people. That's the only thing saving Mark here, otherwise Takaba should be able to bullshit a victory somehow. I think Mark would be fine though. Another case of a really annoying fight, but not one he's not going to win. Because, like I said in the beginning of the video, he just gotta stop this non-lethally and get them on his side somehow. Stopping Takaba would be really hard, but maybe teaming up with him won't be too hard. Kenjaku's also here though, and that would be...
He definitely cannot defeat Takaba, bro, to be honest.
...be an issue due to his variety, especially since we never saw his full bag. So it's weird trying to theorize what he's capable of because it could go way beyond what we've seen, but even just with the stuff we have seen, he's a big threat. Physically, not so much, but it's mainly due to his hacks. Like one a lot of people bring up is the Ganesha Curse, which can remove any sort of obstacle, although it's kind of vague what that does. So it's not to say Kenjaku doesn't have a chance, it's just that his abilities are so vague and so unexplored that it's a little more inconclusive. But now let's do everything else after the fact, mainly the Shinjuku stuff. Also, side note, I know some of the people I'm about to address aren't actually players in the game, but I do want to cover all the Shinjuku stuff as well without excluding anybody. Let's assume the game is still going on, and all the same rules are added, because it wouldn't be fun to just end it there. Now we'll cover any major character that I didn't cover yet, or just the people in the Shinjuku fight. First, Yorizu. She'll be an easy kill. Her True Sphere would be a big threat to Mark, and the attack power of that would kill him. It has infinite pressure, and it would destroy him. But as long as Mark kills her before she does that, he's fine. There's two outcomes to this fight. Mark kills her, or for some reason, he waits too long and she pops this in a domain and he's cooked. But most likely in this scenario, he wins before she can even do that. Even though Arame's not a player, let's address that too. Ice manipulation is not really going to be too effective on Mark because he could withstand extreme temperatures and breaking ice around him shouldn't be too difficult. Yuki's also technically not a player, but I want to bring her up because she's also kind of interesting. Her virtual mask could actually help her kind of harm Mark in a way. Like, it won't win her the fight, but it'll at least make her physically feel stronger. And she's not going to resort to a black hole against him, so it's not really worth covering that. And then technically Gojo's a part of this too, but like,
honestly, I feel like if she did have to resort to that, it definitely would kill him. I'm not gonna lie.
You know how that fight's gonna go. He's not gonna win. Like, that's how most fights with Gojo go, unless some other character has crazy hacks abilities. If they're just really strong, they're not gonna win. Mark can't touch Gojo. And an infinite void would cook his brain, so he's just dead. So technically he would hard stop there at Gojo. Although I guess we can't skim over him because he's technically not a player in the game. But I know if I didn't mention him, people would ask where Gojo is. Like, come on, I hope no one expected a different outcome from that. But fine, if you want to say Gojo fights him, Sukuna comes in and kills him. Now Mark has to face him. Specifically, Sukuna and Megumi's body. Well, before that, I guess Mahoraga and Agito. So Agito has electricity, which could kind of affect Mark here. Again, to what extent we don't really know. But of course, the main focus is Mahoraga. So Mark can kill Mahoraga. Like, if he just delivers a strong enough attack, he could deal with Mahoraga instantly. If he lets Mahoraga adapt...
Cap. No, we can't. Like, listen, you made some solid points this whole video, but I'm sorry. No, he can't. No, he can't.
Then that's where some issues come in because Mahoraga could just adapt to anything, which presumably would include his physical power. And since that's really the only ability Mark has, if Mahoraga adapts to him, he has no other way to win. But with Mahoraga being a curse, Mark's probably not going to have any qualms with killing it right away. I don't see any reason for him to hesitate here or draw the fight out. Just simply fly right through it. Now onto Sukuna himself. Let's say he has the World Dismantle still. So of course we'll do this in two stages, first Megumi Sukuna and then full power Heian Sukuna. Fighting him in Megumi's body is going to be kind of tough because we did set the rule that he's trying not to kill any of the good guys, and he's not going to want to destroy Megumi's body. So this is kind of a battle of endurance. He just has to outlast Sukuna until he goes into his Heian form and then just help destroy him that way somehow. And just hope that Megumi survives that. I don't know, we gotta play it kind of loose with this fight. Sukuna's slashes actually aren't really going to do too much to him. He can adjust cleave, but it's only going to be to a certain extent. He can't just infinitely adjust it and cut Mark that way, and Dismantle's not going to harm him too much. However, there's the World Dismantle, which if it does hit Mark, that should cut clean through him. I mean, it literally cuts real.
I would have to say, like, if Sukuna kept slashing Mark, like, that's if, like, he can catch Mark, because Mark is, like, obviously, like, really, really fast. But, like, if Sukuna kept slashing him over and over, eventually it's going to get through. Eventually. That's just my opinion, you know?
It would go right through him, regardless of durability. But there's two big flaws with that. One, it's not instant. It does have travel speed, and Mark is going to be faster. If you could
That's one thing. Sorry I'm stopping the thing, but people say that the slash just appears on people, and some people said it just has travel speed. Bro, which is it, bro? Like, it either appears on people or it has travel speed, bro. I'm so curious. I'm sorry, guys. I'm actually curious.
Receive it, or at least react to it happen beforehand. You can dodge it, especially with aim dodging. Like, Maki was able to dodge it due to her great senses in hearing Sukuna's chants. And against Kashimo, we see that it has some movement speed. It doesn't just instantly cut space right in front of it, it's kind of a traveling attack. But not as fast as Mark. But you might be thinking Mark has no way of knowing it's coming. And that's the second weakness. He would have a way of knowing it's coming. Sukuna has to do the chants and kind of choreograph everything. And I think Mark's smart enough to see that when Sukuna's pointing at him and saying some weird words, he'd think to himself, oh shit, I should probably move out of the way. So he outlasts that fight, and then Sukuna would go into his Heian form. He's still way too physically strong for Sukuna to do anything. So he wins this fight. Although still, worth mentioning, if Sukuna somehow is able to catch him off guard with the World Dismantle, he could win. But let's do one bonus fight. Invincible versus Jump Kaisen, aka Yuji, Yuta, Todo, Choso, Higuruma, Maki, and Inumaki. Basically everyone at the Sukuna fight. They actually might have a few ways to win here. Still gonna be tough, but still ways to win. I assume they'd start off with Higuruma trying to use his domain, and he can get the death penalty. Todo's Boogie Woogie wouldn't be too effective on someone who has perception at that speed, but he could probably trip Mark up a bit, even if he eventually is able to counter against it. The funny thing is, Todo's not one of the biggest threats here. First of all, there's Choso. If he even lands a single hit on Mark, particularly with the poison blood, that's gonna be a problem. And Mark usually has no issues getting covered in blood, so he probably wouldn't even think twice about Choso's blood hitting him. Another funny thing about this fight is Inumaki is actually one of the bigger threats to him, because he has no way to defend against cursed speech. And it could be used to immobilize Mark, or at least catch him off guard somehow.
Yeah, but that's if, like, if he doesn't have any curse energy. Let's say Higuruma gets rid of his curse energy, because we're doing equalization. I don't know. Would it affect Inumaki? Maybe not. Who knows?
Plus, Yuji has his soul attacks here, which might also accomplish something. Again, this implies he'd even hit Mark in the first place, but if he does, he can attack a soul directly and bypass that durability, so that would injure him. So the main thing they need to do here is find some way to keep Mark immobilized, or at least trip him up enough to get him with the Executioner's sword. This could either be done through use of Boogie Woogie, Curse Speech, hitting him with Poison Blood, or something else. And this also doesn't even account for the fact that Yuta's domain can be used here. Any technique he has can be used as a direct hit on Mark. Granted, it would need to be something strong enough to kill him, but still it's something he can't dodge. Plus, even if the Executioner Sword doesn't work, as long as they find some way for Yuji to hit him, that would harm him. Maki's Split Soul Katana is another big threat here too. So in her first fight with Mark, it's not really going to be too helpful considering how fast he is, but since it ignores physical toughness and actually attacks the soul too, if he gets hit with it here, that's another way to harm him. So if Mark finds himself up against this group, they actually have multiple ways to kill him through teamwork. And Nabar is there too, but they need to actually get a piece of him first to use her ability on him. And if she's on the front lines, it's going to be hard for her to hit him in general. Would it be easy? No, not at all. Is it possible? Yeah, and there's multiple routes of doing it. But that brings us to the end of JJK. So there are a few points where Mark can be stopped. There's not really anything that hard stops him, unless characters get really lucky early on like Kashima or Higuruma. But later on, the Haxi encounters will be very detrimental. Multiple characters actually have ways to kill him. Like most cross-verse things, Gojo's going to be the main one that hard stops him, but ignoring Gojo because that's a really obvious outcome, it's not guaranteed that he'd completely win this. And sure, some of these ways to kill him have slim chances of happening, but with multiple things stacked up on top of each other, one might eventually work, especially with that last thing I mentioned where they'd have everyone fighting together, kinda with him taking Sukuna's place here. As the final stage of the Gauntlet, especially having to fight non-lethally there, that would be a really big issue for him. So yes, physically, Mark completely overpowers everyone here and outspeeds everyone too.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he'll live up to his name.
Like, he's just that strong, bro.
There are numerous creative ways to kill him, and hacks could actually overcome his power here. So at least in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, he's not actually, well...
Okay, buddy.
Anyways,
Okay.
what'd you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And as usual, keep things civil in the comments. I know how power scaling videos get, although things always end up not being civil, so I guess have heated debates in the comments too. That does help engagement too, so go ahead. Anyways though, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. He made some solid points. The one thing I don't agree with is the Maharaga, because Maharaga is a big dude and he does have a healing factor. But yeah, dope video. Shout out to the Salad Bar, bro. Shout out to you, bro. This is a really good and very informative video. And thank you guys for tuning in this video. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, share the video with friends, and I'll see you boys later. Bye.